Welcome to another episode of The Greatest Pod, where we discuss and debate what makes something great. I'm Ed Greer.
I'm producer Bill, and today we are doing a bit of a companion episode to our recent Greatest Weapons episode. A hero is nothing, nor is a villain, I guess, without their technological apparati. And so today we are talking about the greatest vehicles in pop culture.
Oh man, this one is going to be fun because, like I was telling you offline, it is sort of it will become a philosophical conversation
Sure.
as we go forward. It will become a philosophical conversation.
Well, I mean,
Um,
a vehicle is so much about like your entire world, right?
mhm.
What is the scope of your activities? What is the nature of the world that you have to operate in? How much is it an offensive versus defensive versus stealth versus heavily armed thing? All everything that goes into telling your story as a character is encapsulated in the vehicle.
Yep. And just like the weapons, they're emblematic of the type of character the person is.
Mm,
If there's some, because there's like, let's just start where it starts. For
sure.
me, I think one of the first times I saw a car and I was like, wow, that's that guy's car, is Mad Max's Interceptor.
Oh yeah.
I was like, this motherfucking car is the shit.
That's a great one too, because like that was before we got to the Tim Burton's Batmobile of it all, where it's like you're just completely making up the body of a car from scratch. Like the
Hmm.
Interceptor's cool because it's like someone took a car that you could see out on the street, but just like jacked it up with steampunk, crazy machinery and that big old engine popping out the hood.
Hmm.
And suddenly it's like car plus. It's like there's something off, there's something a little bit over the top, but it's still just a car, or is it? It hits that part of your brain.
Well, it hits that part of your brain because I think also these vehicles will be emblematic of the job
Hmm.
sometimes that these characters do. And
Hmm.
so in this case, this guy's job as like super cop, one of the last frontiers of cops where it's like, and that's, I just got to say, one of the greatest things about Mad Max, and I'm talking about way back just before even, just the very first Mad Max where it was like society was crumbling, but it still existed.
Sure.
Even in that society, it poses like this sort of kind of how the police are in Brazil. I'm not casting aspersions, but I've seen the sidearms of police officers in Brazil, and they have like submachine guns as sidearms, and their long guns are like
Oof.
striker auto shotguns and shit. You know what I
Oof.
mean? Like everything's graduated. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And like you fucking do a crime in Dubai and they chase your ass down. It's in a Lamborghini or some shit, like they're this just super graduation of what is needed to deal with the crime of the world. It's like the car communicates that, like his sidearm communicates that, like his one piece of like almost Judge Dreddian shoulder armor communicates that. It
Yeah.
all communicates that this is a dangerous world with we need all these special shits just to get by.
Yeah. I'm going to also say it brings up, and we're going to get philosophical early, it brings up this question of like, our enemies are so bad that we need the technological advantage. That sort of uncomfortable
Mhm.
question about escalation and about like what is justified force. And Mad Max definitely exists at a time, especially that first Mad Max, when pop culture really started indulging in the Dirty Harry, Charles Bronson, just vengeance on the street type characters. And the fact that Mad Max was doing it with this like tank muscle car, it's a step toward dehumanizing your villains and your criminals, because it's like they're such monsters. I need this beast of a car to go after them.
I mean, yeah, but I think that's the whole thing about the superheroic or the mythic hero or the Western hero. We
That's
always
true.
kind of we always kind of do that. Their horses are bigger, their guns are longer, they could shoot us from farther away. They've got an army, and we're just some peasants and two natives that choose to be down with us, whatever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's always that sort of thing. But I do see the fact that like when you look at something like Fury Road, it's interesting when somebody's vehicle is stripped away from them, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
because one of the first things you see in that movie is like, "Fuck your Interceptor, it sucks. It's blown up. It flipped 1,000 times."
No, 100%. And I mean, just the fact then that they really do amp up the vehicles in that movie, where now you've got these entire fleets of these trucks that are just like nightmare machines. Not only is it a cool visual, but suddenly it places the Interceptor in this milieu where that car is just barely getting by because things have gotten so crazy.
Yes, exactly. And so that's interesting that as far as cars that are like that, all the muscle cars of cinema, and shows, just from, I hate to say it, but the goddamn General Lee, baby. the the
you
General
gotta
Lee.
you gotta give it
Oh,
its props.
oh my god, as like a car, and the car, maybe the car is not racist. Maybe the car is like, "Look, man, I was primered out and I was cool. I had a bunch of Mexican guys and black fellers working on me. We all had a good time. And then I get sold to these goddamn hillbillies. They put this
Hmm.
propaganda on me and then just jumping me over shit. My suspension on my back. They broke my back."
I buy it. That's now canon, 100%.
The General Lee is a conscious objector in the Civil War.
That's but that's why. So, I mean, this also gets to what makes the General Lee so cool, but, like, that's why the General Lee kind of felt like a bucking bronco. It kind of
Hmm.
felt like, they barely had
Hmm.
control of it because it was constantly just trying to be like, "Fuck these Duke boys."
I'm going back to Detroit.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh shit!
It's so
But like,
good.
muscle cars are so funny because it's like Blade has a dope
Mm,
ass muscle car,
yep.
and I think Blade's car was right. There's this, and we're going to talk about it, but there's this step below Interceptor
Mm,
and two steps below, let's say, Batmobile or something. You
sure.
know what I'm saying? Like it's an iconic vehicle, but it doesn't quite have that specialness of these other ones. But like Blade's car to me was just like, I want something that blends into my urban environment. I want something fast. I want something with some real 0 to 60 pick up and go. And if I hit something with this motherfucker, I want him to feel it.
Mhm.
So that's what the car that you chose. It
Yeah.
felt utilitarian, is what I'm saying.
There's also something heightened about it because from one point of view, if you're trying to operate like in the shadows of an urban environment, you want the least conspicuous car available to you, right? Like, and my mind kind of goes to something like the Bourne movies, where it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna carjack a Fiat or a Bug or whatever it was in that first one, or like we're just gonna be driving sort of off the shelf SUVs or whatever, and just pushing them to the limit. I mean, that feels a little bit more like somebody trying to operate in the shadows of an urban environment. But like with Blade, it's kind of branding, baby. It's a little bit like you see that car and vampires start pissing down their own legs.
Well, yeah, no, you have to respect the guy who's not hiding, that
Hmm.
there is something about that. Like and if you think about it, all the powers that were going against him, you would think he would try to hide more.
You
But
would,
he was
yeah.
just like, I'm just, I'm Yojimbo. I'm in the town and I can't hide from anybody because I'm too dope.
It is funny when we talk about, these cars specifically, sort of like these hyped up cars. It all does have shades of the Western hero. I think you were right on
Hmm.
when you brought that up because you think of the Western hero on, it's the Lone Ranger on what was it? Tornado? No, Tornado was Zorro's horse, but
Yeah,
just that I
Silver.
Silver, yeah, the Lone Ranger rode Silver. But yeah, just that idea that like your larger than life hero that's bringing justice to a lawless place has to have like the big magnificent steed that can run faster and leap higher than any other horse in the territory. That's what these cars are.
Yeah, dude. Well, let's talk. Well, since we cannot. see into the minds of horses.
Mm.
I respect them as creatures, and they're just as valuable as anybody else. I haven't subjected a horse to my fat ass since Boy Scout camp. You know what I'm saying? So like I am a friend of the equine, okay? But since we do not know too much about their personalities and all this kind of shit, let's treat them as vehicles for the purpose of this conversation. And let's
Sure.
talk about some of the best fucking horses. Cause like Silver is a bad motherfucking horse.
Yeah,
That
man.
horse is bad.
Yeah. I mean, that was always sort of the Lone Ranger's coolest gimmick was like all the shit that he did from that horse. And whether it's like leaning off the side of the horse as he's shooting his gun, or whether it's the horse pulling up next to a train so he could jump onto the train as it's moving, like
Mm-hmm.
that horse was really kind of his Deus ex machina.
Yep.
Yeah.
He could get him out of anything. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
he could get out of anything. So I love that fucking horse. I also love sort of, I mean, I never was a Black Beauty person. I
Yeah.
always thought Black Beauty was really maudlin. You know what I'm saying? Like the parts that I could get from it, you know,
Yeah.
from different synopses and different seeing different movies. They've done 5,000 movies of that bullshit.
Can I
You
tell you
know.
something? I was developing a Black Beauty series a couple of years ago with the company I was with at the time, because yeah, I think at this point it's in the public domain, and so we were just trying to like, find a title that people would recognize and like put a modern spin on it. But yeah, Black Beauty has been adapted to death.
Dude, some like urban, okay, I got it. I got it. Here's the pitch. Urban Cowboy. Bet you guys didn't think of that shit. Let's look at
Uh-huh.
like those dudes in Philadelphia. They're they're like black dudes and they ride along with the Rough Rider dudes on the ATVs and shit. That
Well,
whole thing,
the
and they
fucking
could just
Compton Cowboys, by the way.
yeah, all that
Yeah,
shit, all
yeah.
any of that stuff, any amalgamation they're in. Just like yeah, we're we regulate any stealing the property. It was a clear black night. You know what I'm saying? You just
Oh,
any of that shit with the but Black Beauty is like, oh man, this motherfucker's trying to take my horse stuff. You know what I'm saying? My
yeah.
horse has to go off to like war, off to fucking the Lipperzahner Academy. Like, how the fuck did the beautiful Black Beauty horse like this get down in the ghetto? These guys don't have the rights to this horse. Did they
They're
come get
repossessing the horse.
they're repossessing the fucking horse. Like, how these ghetto kids get this horse? But it's really this kid's like, you know,
Yeah.
since we're marketing this to white people too, it's his birthright, right? Just
Uh-huh.
birthright from a long time ago. He was willed down this horse, but these rich fuckers are trying to countermand it, and they're trying to keep him in the fucking horse apart. And it's like Black Beauty slash over the top.
I kind of don't mind it. Like there's something there.
That's why they pay me the medium bucks, dude.
There's something
Let's
there.
get these projects going during the writer strike, dude. We
One
gotta
hundred percent.
strike while the iron is hot.
Black Beauty is an inner city drama. Love it.
Oh
No, but
shit.
my feeling on horses has always been I kind of love when horses are more vehicle than character. Like,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and this is, I think, a very specific personal thing because Lord knows there's a lot of horse people out there who love them some horses. But for me, it's like the more it becomes even something like Secretariat, where it's like it's about that horse and how the horse lives and the relationships with the horse and blah blah blah. Like, give me Silver or even give me Shadowfax from Lord of the Rings, like Gandalf's big
Mm.
ass white horse. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, who I think in the books was like even more badass than he was in the movies, where he himself had his own legend, the white
Mm-hmm.
stallion that no one could tame and blah blah blah. Like, I love a horse that's really more just like an extension of the hero's power, which I think is where you get into the muscle cars, right? Where it's like we no longer have to worry about this thing as its own living being. Like, it can now just be sort of this symbol of power or whatever the symbol might be.
Motherfucking horsepower.
Yeah,
It
man.
it represents so many. Look how many horses. You thought Prince Valiant was tight. That motherfucker only had one horse. Blade got 500 horses under the hood. You
Uh-huh.
know,
Yeah.
it's a really big correlation. I also think I got to give props to Tornado though. Tornado,
Mhm.
uh, uh, you know Zorro's horse because he did have personality. And you did have to kind of talk to him nice and be cool. And sometimes he would just kind of fuck up on you. And I kind of like that.
That's why one of my favorite horses is the horse from the movie Tangled, which is like a really weird thing to bring into our nerd conversation here. But like in that Disney adaptation of Rapunzel, there was this horse who had like this very antagonistic relationship with the male hero because the horse was essentially stolen from like the palace guards by this, Han Solo type Flynn rider. And so as they were traveling with this horse, the horse himself was always trying to like arrest or trap the main character. And so they had to kind of come to a mutual understanding. And if you're going to play a horse as a character, I say go the full Disney route and anthropomorphize it. And like that horse has its own goals and has its own personality and it's prickly as
Mhm.
shit. I'll take that. I love that.
It's funny that you hardly ever, for my money in this media that I consumed, I never really saw that ever, except one shining time,
Mm,
and it was the horse 3030 from Brave Star. Now, Brave Star was a really, it was like, imagine the same people that made He-Man.
okay.
They made a show exactly like it with a Native American sheriff. You can look at it while I'm describing it.
Yeah, I'm looking it up right now.
Native American sheriff in the planet of New Texas, and he was the marshal. And he dressed like a
Holy
marshal, but he
shit.
had like a ponytail,
I'm
and
seeing it.
he had superpowers. He would say strength of the bear, 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 and he would become a bear. I mean, he would have the strength of a bear. He would say speed of the puma, and he would get really fast. Eyes of the hawk, and he could see really far, so on and so forth.
Mhm.
And his horse was named 3030, and it was a robot, like, no, excuse me, cybernetically enhanced or cyborg horse. It
Yeah,
was a
it is.
cyborgs.
So, I mean, it is a cyborg anthropomorphized horse. And
Oh yeah.
honestly, this thing is kind of frightening, even in like the children's Hanna-Barbera cartoon style that it's rendered in.
But dude, and if you keep looking at his pictures, he can turn into a regular horse. Brave Star used to ride him all the time.
Oh, okay,
But he
okay.
could also turn into, yeah, this weird standing man creature,
Yes.
and do stuff. So it's like he had his own personality, but obviously he did what the fuck Brave Star wanted him to do. But he just happened to want to do that because they're serving justice together, brother.
Sure.
And he had a big ass gun. That was his thing. You know what? He was very Chewbacca like. If
Ye
Chewbacca could like talk,
I could see that. Just looking at the pictures, I could see that. I mean, this is wild. Like, the
dude.
designs on this stuff is crazy.
Yes, and they fought like undead zombie cowboy aliens and shit out in the desert. And like I think the main villain was kind of a ghost or something. I don't know, I might be fucking that part up.
Wow.
But yeah, it was crazy, dude. And Brave Star is one of those things where it's like, those cartoons that you feel as though you made them up because nobody remembers them type
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah, yeah,
Brave
yeah.
Star is like that. So like I'm glad the internet exists so people don't think I'm fucking crazy.
Honestly, like, this maybe I was too young, but this passed me by completely. I have
No, yeah.
no memory of this at all.
Dude, you would have missed this by probably 4 years, 4 or 5. You
Okay.
would have had to been almost like a baby adopting that, and it didn't last long enough for it to be shoved down your throat in that manner, especially with the media available at the time.
Well, sure, yeah. It wasn't selling that VHS like hotcakes.
No, no. Oh, but so as far as other animals, I also think that most of the other creatures that you ride, like fucking Falagor, I guess from uh, Neverending Story, which a
Sure.
lot of people will be mad at us for not mentioning. He's pretty cool. He seems kind of invincible.
Yeah,
Yay.
yeah, yeah.
I don't really find that type of character that interesting. I really like I I almost wish that somebody like I guess people who ride dragons, I think that those dragons and How to Train Your Dragon, those are
Yeah,
pretty cool, you
yeah.
know.
Oh, no.
Especially as an honorable mention, because they're sick as fuck. I went to DreamWorks Studios to do a comedy show, and I joked with them about Train Your Dragon 3. They were talking about like, let me guess, there's some dragons, and they're untrainable.
And we have to figure out how to train them. No, but honestly, like, Toothless, that nightshade dragon that they've
Mm-hmm.
got. That character design is so sick,
Yeah.
and the animation is so unbelievable throughout all three of those movies. And that character's personality being like a little bit of a puppy, but also a little bit of a cat and like a little bit of its own thing. Like
Mm-hmm.
that was an achievement, man. As far as riding animals go, he is top tier.
Yep, absolutely. So, all right, if we're gonna segue from animals to back to the metal,
Uh-huh.
what if you were gonna say one that just pops right into your mind? Is I say, look, vehicle. What pops in your mind that we haven't talked about yet?
I mean, the first one in my head is Silver Surfer's surfboard.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, there's just this is why I love talking about vehicles and pop culture. I'm not like a gearhead. And look,
Hmm.
there is a shit ton to appreciate just about some really kick-ass car or really souped up car, or even in the case of like the Dark Knight Tumbler, right? Like this weird custom built tank car hybrid that can jump. Like all that is really cool, but like I just don't go in for the mechanics of you know the fucking pistons and the whatever the fuck. Like I don't care. But the Silver Surfer surfboard, like this is a thing that we all have a frame of reference for. But like, what if you could master it and not only fly, but like fly through fucking space on invisible energy waves that permeate everywhere and go faster than light? And like, that is dope as shit. The idea that like taking a means of conveyance that we all have firsthand experience with, and I mean, this is the thing about the surfboard, like the feeling of freedom that really mastering a surfboard or a skateboard or a snowboard really gives you, right? Like
Hmm.
that's a high. That's a really sort of superhuman feeling in and of itself. And then you slap some sci-fi nonsense on top of that, like sign
Hmm.
me up all day, man.
Well, I mean, the thing that is really interesting about it to me is it again, it's the genius of Jack Kirby, the apocryphal story or probably the truth that he just sort of drew that character in the corner. Like, well, he's a big guy, he needs a herald. So I
Yeah,
drew a guy and he's on a surfboard because it's cool,
yeah, yeah,
he's surfing. And it's just like, God damn, that's just genius. And when it gets into all these things of like, I'm a Star Trek head. So just and everybody's watched Star Wars, so they understand a certain jumping to light speed and the you jump into like a dimension of light and then
mm,
you come out at another point in space or whatever the fuck or whatever streaking by you or whatever time dilation happens when you're going that fast, whatever way you want to render it. It's just amazing to be doing that outside of a vehicle or to
yes,
be part of like to be experiencing outer space against your very skin and to be
yes,
going faster than light. It's just the degree of magnitude that is cooler than being in a spaceship is unfathomable.
100%, 100%. And it's also somehow cooler than like just being able to fly at light speed.
Yes.
Right, because
Yes.
like, there's even something about that, like, it feels like a cheat code, right? It's like,
Mhm.
"Alright, so Superman can fly faster than light, and he's gonna go and visit this other planet." Like, that feels like, well, you're just sort of programming in a cheat code, and he's just going from A to B, and, like, the process of getting from A to B is almost unimportant.
Mhm.
And even flying of its in and of itself, as much as we've all had the dreams where we could fly, and there's something really magical and amazing about that, like once you take that out of the familiar milieu of like flying over a city or flying over a mountain, and now it's just you're flying in space, it just feels a little bit like there's nothing to for your mind to grab onto. But just the simple act of I'm standing on this thing and I'm balancing on this thing and it's accelerating me under my feet, suddenly it becomes this tactile experience.
Mhm.
And then it's like you're not you're not moving at light speed. Your vehicle is moving at light speed. but because it imbues you with this power cosmic, suddenly you're feeling these very alien energies flowing through you and around you. And it's like there's a tactileness and like a way that grabs the imagination that just flight alone, whether with a Green Lantern ring or whatever the fuck, just it doesn't capture it. There's something about the surfboard.
Dude, and you know what's really fucking sad? I think we're gonna end up dissing the Green Lantern ring again because it
Oh
is not
man.
one of the greatest vehicles. It is not one of the greatest weapons. It sucks balls.
Yeah.
And it's just so inferior to something. Even and the thing is, what's funny is somebody screaming at their device, going like, "That is fucking dumb. That it's just a stupid surfboard. Like he's in space surfing, but that's the dumbest shit ever." And I will concede that gladly because it doesn't have to. It's not about it not having to make sense. It makes the sense of the fact that space, the closest we can approximate to it is an ocean.
Sure.
And so the surfboard conveyance just, I don't even know. Kirby was thinking on 100 levels higher than even he knew he was thinking on. And that's not to denigrate him at all. That's to
No.
say, like, he was super genius. So like somewhere in there, he's going like, yeah, space is an ocean, and you surf on the energy out there, and you hit like a tube and go super way faster than light, and all this kind of shit like that. Like he's just whatever way he could grok that. That's what he was sort of thinking, and that shit is dope as fuck.
It
There's
just
so- there,
is.
yeah, it's doper than all that shit that they're saying it's not as good as. Dude, honestly, it's doper than that. And I think also there's something soulful about surfing. I
Yeah.
think what little people know about surfing and to a lesser extent, and I do mean lesser extent, skateboarding,
Mhm.
there's a soulness to surfing and skateboarding and snowboarding, I guess. But like, yes, there's a
Yeah.
soulness to it. There's a there. I'm specifically the ocean part though. The feeling of the swells, even when the motherfuckers get attacked by sharks, they rise up. Sometimes there won't be a wave, but there'll be something moving and it'll rise them up a little bit, and they know that
Mm,
something displacing water around them.
mm.
They're in it and they feel it, and I gotta think that that's how Norrin Rad is in space.
100%. And I mean, I think along with that, there's also this knowledge, even if you don't do it, that like so much of surfing is just about stillness, right? There's so much of
Mm-hmm.
surfing is about the calm before you get into, into the rip curl or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like that feeling of just having to know what everything feels like, to trust, that proprioception. It's not about what you're
Mm-hmm.
seeing or smelling or hearing. It's literally like that weird, uncanny sense that takes place in the inner ear and hits the back of your brain. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
something primal and interesting about that. So it's like it doesn't feel like maybe that's the difference between flying, where it's like if I'm flying at light speed, it just feels like I'm shot out of a gun and it's all motion, motion, motion in a straight line. But the very act of surfing is about like, no, I'm becoming one with this thing that exists outside of me, and I need to respect it and feel it and be a part of it in order to move. And like that's
Mm-hmm.
just cool.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, so that being the case, Silver Surfer's surfboard is really hard to beat as far as a soul instrument. But I
Can
do
I
think, go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry. Just real quick. I do want to give and they're all Kirby inventions. I want to give special mention that like the Silver Surfer surfboard is 100% the best version, but like those little discs that Mr. Miracle puts on his feet so that he can fly, those are also dope.
Yeah.
And then we talked about it last episode, but Orion's Astro harness, that
Mm-hmm.
weird kind of like half ski, half harness contraption that he rides. I always saw that as functioning very similar to the Silver Surfer surfboard, but almost more like it's like an elliptical machine as opposed to a board, you know?
Well, dude, we can't forget the Black Racer, right? He's
With the
fucking skiing through
skis.
he's
Yeah.
skiing through space. See, when you see the alchemy of the surfboard, the surfboard is just perfect. You
Yeah.
turn the fucking dial a half a degree, you put a little extra sprig of fucking time in there, and the whole soup's ruined. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's just it's crazy. but as far okay, so I'm thinking of space vehicles now, and I think we have to give some of these space assholes, these
Mm,
ships. We got to talk about some of these ships because I do think that sometimes a ship is emblematic of what the thing is. Like for me, all the Star Trek Enterprises, but I don't want to really bore anybody with all the different ones. But the whole concept of like we all live here
yeah.
and we go into adventures. And when fuckers shoot us with torpedoes, we jostle all around because I guess as the old joke goes, we forgot seatbelt technology a long time ago. Uh,
Yeah.
there's
So
something about that to me. It's intriguing to me, and more intriguing than the Millennium Falcon. Full stop. You know.
100%. I mean, so I've got an interesting anecdote about this. When I was in college, I played football in college, and when we would go on the road, I was the backup quarterback. I would room with the starting quarterback, and he and I were friends. And so, like, at night after you're done with your meetings or whatever, before you go to sleep, you're just watching. You're in the room, you're watching TV. So one day, we're just flipping through channels, and Next Generation comes on, and he asks me if I've ever watched it. I'm like, I never really got into it, but like I'm very aware of Star Trek. And he's like, oh, my dad and I used to watch this all the time when I was a kid. I think I've seen every episode. And somehow the conversation turned to the fact that the Enterprise had like 1,000 people on it. And that blew my mind because I had never
Mhm.
watched Star Trek. And so to me, it was always just the crew that the stories were about. And
Mhm.
he then got very animated, telling me, like, no, it's like they have an entire society aboard this ship. And that's why being the captain is such an important thing because you're literally like the steward of this little mini society and you have to keep all these people safe. And honestly, like I thought about that for like weeks after learning it. I was like, holy fucking shit, that's dope.
That you know what? I am very happy about that because obviously when somebody's a dyed in the wool Star Trek head, they get indoctrinated to that, and that's part of it for them.
Yeah.
But that being broken down to you and you being able to appreciate it, that really gives me hope that maybe someday somebody will have the verbiage to break down, like, I don't know, any of that magic shit. You know what I'm saying? It'd be like, dude, let me just break it down for you. And I'd be like, wow, that blew my mind. You mean the souls from the Skababada Bab won't get back into the Scuba da Boo? Foo boom. You know
I
what I'm saying?
get it now. I
Dude.
get it. It's like that episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia where Danny DeVito just doesn't get the gay thing until he watches Mac do like an interpretive dance and they just zoom in on his face. I get
I
it
get
now.
it. I
That's
get it.
it's gonna be Ed and me with magic.
Oh my god, jeez Louise. Because like, yeah, a dude with in charge of 1,000 lives, and all of those people's lives. I'm not trying to be in Star Trek, every fucking body does what they can do to the greatest of their ability, especially if they're in Starfleet, because
Mhm,
that's what their job is. Their job isn't to like loaf around or make a salary. Nobody's trying to get retirement because there's no money.
mhm.
Everybody on that ship is the greatest and the best of whatever the fuck they do. You know what I'm saying? I'm the best push these three buttons guy. I'm
Yeah,
the best engineer. I'm the best. I'm the best. 1,000 of the best. And then sometimes motherfuckers shoot your ass with a torpedo and 35 of them get sucked out in outer space. It just is what it is. You
yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There's such a gravitas to Star Trek that I don't think people get because if they concentrated on all those people that got sucked out all the time, when they say when the motherfuckers say there's a hull breach, that means 35 motherfuckers minimum got sucked into space.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That was one of the things I appreciated about the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies is like they really did, maybe gratuitously, but they showed the collateral damage of like when the Enterprise
Hmm.
gets damaged, like there's
Hmm.
people getting fucked up.
Yeah, yeah, it's a city. So yeah, I'm into those, but if we are gonna talk about something like the Millennium Falcon, I will just bow all the way down to both the design of most Star Trek ships. I just that
Mhm.
big saucer and the nacelles on the side, just and I think nacelles, whatever you say,
Yeah.
those come from like Navy, I guess, technology, like these outboard motors or something, and they just put it on spaceships.
Yeah.
That's such a cool idea, like, to keep it nautical. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? Like, there's again, space is the ocean. think we're establishing a theme here for some of these ships, you know,
Yes.
because that's why we call them ships. Obviously, I'm not a dumbass, but I'm just saying, like, the more nautical space is, the cooler space is all I'm saying.
Mm.
And I
That
think,
really that really bucks against the opening line of my graphic novel, but which 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 points out how the only reason we compare space to the ocean is because we are stupid. But that
but that's it's what we can liken it to, because other than the ocean, space is
yeah,
unfathomable.
we
It's
have no
like
frame of reference.
that sort of emptiness, and we know that the ocean isn't empty. We are terrifyingly sure the ocean is not empty.
Sure.
But space is terrifyingly empty, which is why we made up aliens. I'm going to gloss over that point. But you know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
Because you know what I'm saying? Because space is terrifyingly empty.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I just, and I'm not saying we made up faster than regular craft that are unidentified and flying around. I'm not
Mhm.
saying we made up that. I think we might have made up aliens to make it just, you know, to make it less lonely out
100%.
there. You know what
No,
I'm saying?
100%. 100%. I mean, getting back to the Enterprise, I have always appreciated that design. Like even when I knew nothing about Star Trek, and obviously I didn't grow up a Star Trek head because I made it to college not even knowing how the ships worked. But that the saucer with the two nacelles out the back is such an effective vehicle design because it's like nothing else you've ever seen. It was like
Mm,
nothing else you've ever seen when it was created, and it's like nothing else that you've seen since because it's such an iconic design. Nobody's going to rip it off because you literally can't rip it off without being super obvious that you're ripping it off. So it's
mm-hmm.
like I'm going to stay really far away. I love stuff like that is so unique in its design while still feeling functional, feeling like, well, this isn't just complete nonsense. It's not like they're traveling space in a giant cube, which is the Borg. But anyway, you know, but that to me is the mark of a really great vehicle as well. Like it is so singular that it doesn't recall anything before and nothing since has even attempted to come close.
Well, you know what's interesting about I think you touched on it when you talked about the Borg ship. In space, nothing has to be aerodynamic.
Mhm.
Every single cool spaceship design is aerodynamic.
Mhm.
Every single one.
Mhm.
Maybe so-called slave one or whatever from Boba Fett, which has that sort of flat fly forward design. Maybe
Yeah.
not that one, but most other ships that are cool in spacefaring shit, they look aerodynamic. The fucking X-wings look like they'd handle themselves pretty good in upper atmosphere. They look like the apotheosis of Top Gun jets,
Yeah.
so on and so forth. And in the TIE fighters, all the kind of shit. I just think it, and aerodynamic design is part of it, even though it's not needed. It's like the ocean thing. It's like you got to bring it down to people's like lizard brain,
Yeah.
and you know.
I mean, Star Wars breaks so many rules about space travel anyway, but like just the fact that all those ships also operate in the atmosphere, I think sort of demands that they look like craft
Hmm.
that fly in an atmosphere. You know,
Hmm.
it would be weird if, because I mean, even going back to the original, like the TIE fighters that took out the Death Star launched out of an atmosphere. It's not like they're,
Hmm.
launching out of a bigger craft that's just hanging up in space. So it would be weird if you're flying out just, strange, tumbling, scaffolded, asymmetrical nonsense. You
That's
know,
the new hot shit. I'm gonna fucking debut that. That's hot. Like a fucking you make a space where like the space vehicles like something aerodynamic drags this lunk into outer space and chucks it, and then it just turns on all these weird engines and boosters. It goes,
I mean,
you
I kind
know,
of love that. Like,
you,
to be honest with you, that's why one of my most iconic space vehicles is the Discovery from 2001.
nice,
Which,
nice.
one of the more realistic space vehicles, and I think that's awesome. Just because I do think it does a disservice to the general public's understanding of like what space is and how it works to see what are essentially like fighter jets just seamlessly transitioning from flying in the atmosphere to flying at light speed through space. Like
Yeah, yeah,
it
yeah.
looks cool, but we need to start doing more work in our fiction because like at this point we know enough about space and space travel is becoming bizarrely common, with the rise of
Mhm.
SpaceX and related companies.
Mhm.
Like, I think it would do well for more of us to have a more innate understanding of what space is and how space travel works. So I do
Mhm.
have a little bit of a chip on my shoulder against spacecraft that look like planes. And so for that reason, like I'm big on something like the Discovery, even something like the ship from Christopher Nolan's Interstellar, which obviously does have a plane element that detaches and lands and then
Mhm.
somehow is able to launch again. So I don't like that. But the fact that the vehicle that they're traveling in is essentially, a rotating habitat with segments that, all form a circle, and that's dope. I like that.
Well, I mean, the discovery is so cool. It looks like a bone, and
Yeah.
it looks like it's got this bulbous situation going on with it. I also think that I mean I love a bulbous weird spaceship, which is I just gotta give it up. I really gotta give it up to the best, probably the first best star spaceship for me, second most favorite for me in Star Wars, and that is the Millennium Falcon. We got to talk about it because it looking like a Pac-Man and like the cockpit being off to the side and all that shit. That shit is so fucking fresh,
Yeah.
and like the blazing hyperspeed booster array around it. It's like a rounded well of energy busting out the back to shoot it. Oh
I
god,
love that. I love it
so
because
fresh.
obviously, like, all the vehicles in Star Trek operate on some completely impossible, thrust aerodynamic, whatever the hell you want to call it.
You made
So,
Star
like,
Wars, but yeah,
oh,
it's
I'm sorry.
classically speaking.
Sorry, I do mean Star Wars. So I would much rather see something like the Millennium Falcon that just has like the long curved rectangle of pure ionic energy or whatever the fuck, as opposed to something that just looks like a jet turbine. Like, give me
Right,
that all day. I love that.
right, right, and just I just think how it's just apportioned. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like how it's like the front things, I guess, dock on shit because I guess it's like a cargo ship, so it, like grab docks and grab stuff, whatever the fuck.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just really cool, and it also looks so still freighter like, but still fast. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Because obviously the story points are it's so fast, it does this and that and all this kind of stuff, but it just has a when it's flying around with a bunch of smaller fighters, you see that it is slower than them, but it is still maneuverable enough to pull off some hot shit.
Yes. I also love the fact the interior is sort of designed as like a torus. Like, there's a main hallway that just sort of runs in a circle around
Mhm.
the whole thing. And
Mhm.
that's kind of cool because I think so often the interior of spaceships are so kind of oblique. Like, it's just compartments with ladders and platforms, and like you don't really understand how it fits inside the ship in any appreciable way. The fact that like the interior of the Millennium Falcon actually feels like, oh yeah, I see how that fits the space, is cool to me. I like that.
Yeah, like it makes sense. We're not gonna talk about any Fast and the Furious cars because they just all blend together. They just find a new super
I
fresh car every minute, and I had to watch. I had an assignment to write a video that basically told the story of Fast and Furious in 5 minutes for
okay.
people who were gonna watch the newest one. And boy, that assignment almost killed me. That was that time. Remember I told you I stayed up like
Yes,
all night.
yes,
I
you
fucking
were.
I
Yeah,
dude.
you burned a weekend like in obvious angst over whatever you were working on. We didn't know at the time, but yes,
Oh my god, I fucking had to watch all of them, and you think you could just skim through no. You have
they're
to watch all of them because there's a lot of shit going on.
yeah, they're fairly dense movies for being as mindless as they are.
Oh my god, that's perfectly stated. Damn,
Yeah.
that's a soundbite for your ass. Because damn, you are absolutely correct. I ended up summarizing the last one, and then the note that I got back was, "You summarized all of this fucking plot, and you didn't even emphasize that they went into outer space in a car." And I was
Yep.
like, "Okay, I mentioned it, but there was a lot of other stuff going on."
Yeah.
I was trying to give everything equal gravitas because Dom's long lost brother came back. It was a
Oh
whole
yeah.
thing.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
No, I know. Here's the only thing I'll say about Fast and Furious. Even Dom's car whatever that, I don't know the make and model of the car, but whatever that black car with the giant engine block coming out the hood is,
Mhm.
even that is not very impressive to me. Like, it just feels like the most obvious generic choice for that guy. Like, oh, we've got a meathead muscle man who's kind of a bad boy. Give him a fucking black muscle car with a huge engine. Like, come on.
Well, I mean, that the 1970 Dodge Charger, I looked it up,
Okay.
is fucking badass. I mean, geez. If you have one of these in perfect working order, and it also is, the exact same car as the General Lee, just painted, different.
Oh, that's see, even that kind of pisses me off, though. Even that does kind of piss me off. But go on.
Because it's got, because the engine is coming out of it. Because it's like, so this one and that one jumps too. You would think it would throw off its center of gravity. Anyway,
Yeah, yeah.
um, uh, arguing physics in a Fast and Furious movie, I'm the dumb one. Um,
It may as well
so
be Star Wars, bro. Like, come on.
Abso-fucking. Oh, speaking of which, I gotta give honorable mention, and I know this is crazy, but I love Mandalorians, and they're always gonna come up now that I love them. I
Mhm.
love their jetpacks. I think they're cool.
Hmm.
Their jetpacks have offensive weapons in them,
Mhm.
and they have Beskar armor on so that they can put on some metal draws so they don't burn their butt cheeks off with the exhaust. I don't care where the thrust comes from. I don't care. I don't
Yeah,
care.
yeah,
Uh,
that's fine.
and also, I think the fact that they are a defensive weapon as well. That you can like send somebody a shield by throwing their jetpack over towards them or something, or you could turn your back and get hitting your back in the jetpack. I guess the internal components are way under the best car, so like laser blasts hit the fucking thing, all types. I just think that's so cool. It's really Mandalorian. It's very useful. It's defensive and it's offensive. It's the ultimate Mandalorian conveyance, way
Yeah,
more so than any vehicle they could have or any beast they could ride.
yeah.
It's the fucking jetpack. The jetpack's the juice. So
Okay.
I just want to give it its own props because normally I fucking hate jetpacks. I think jetpacks are fucking dumb
See, that's
most of the time.
interesting because I do love the Rocketeer's jetpack.
No, okay, yeah. The Rocketeer jetpack is kind of the fantasy I'm talking about, where your whole ass will be burnt off.
Sure.
But the romanticism of it, Dave Stevens' artwork,
Yes.
even to a certain extent, Joe Johnston's and them's movie, based on it. I get it. Trust me, I
Yeah.
get it.
It's honestly, it's just a combination of that super sleek kind of art deco design to the jetpack. The fact that it is, you know, notwithstanding that it would burn your ass off, it is like a functional piece of equipment that can be damaged, can run out of gas, like they're
Mm-hmm.
constantly having to patch it up and refuel it and this and that.
Mm-hmm.
I like that about it. It's a vehicle that has limitations that they use to create story elements, and that I think is cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think shout out to I guess the guy in Ex Machina had a jetpack too. It's
Did
pretty
he?
fresh. I think he ended up flying and like say trying to I think he ended up doing some stuff to stop like 9/11 or something in the story. So I think
Oh,
he definitely had a jetpack.
I thought you meant Ex Machina the movie with Oscar Isaac. I was like, when was Oscar Isaac in a jetpack?
He's like he puts on the jetpack. Hey, don't fuck my robot while I'm gone.
Then it blasts off. See, you know what's funny about that? Um, the jetpack notwithstanding, I always thought that that comic series was supposed to be pronounced Ex Machina because he used to be
Hmm.
the Great Machine. That was his superhero name.
Hmm.
So obviously it's spelled the same as the Latin phrase ex machina, and there's, a literary pun there. But in my head, I always think of it as that series is Ex Machina because he is the
Huh.
ex Great Machine.
You know what? You're right. I call it Mama called him Clay. I'm gonna call him Clay. Dude, comic book stuff is so funny.
Yeah,
So as far as flying and jumping and stuff, we did kind of brush over the Batmobiles. I do want
yeah.
to give them their section because I think your favorite Batmobile, it says something about you. So, like Dirk Diggler and Reed Rothschild, that's one, two, three. Say our favorite Batmobile. I'm just joking. What is your favorite Batmobile though? If you have the vast array, and I'm talking about ones from comics, even
Sure.
our audience is nerdy enough to remember Jim Aparo's black hooded,
Yeah, with
and
yeah.
that
The headlights
gun.
are essentially the eyes on the Batman silhouette that came up the
Mm,
hood.
yeah.
Yeah. It's not that one. I mean, for me, it's the Tim Burton Batmobile. The Tim Burton Batmobile is just sick as fuck. Like that that is the Batmobile for me now and forever. Which is to take nothing away from the many great design variations that have existed across different media, but like there's just something about that is such a cool combination of like badass looking, but also simple, and it looks functional, but also kind of fantastical. Like I just fucking love it. And you can play with it, change it up a little bit, but just that central design of the hood that slides forward on top of like what looks like a rocket body with those two very swooped chassis elements that come down to the
Hmm.
to the front with the big ass rocket engine in the back. Like I just love everything about it. I love that Batmobile.
Well, I mean, I really I respect its design, but it's just so many elements about it in its world that just piss me off. The fucking shoot a fucking grappling hook to turn a corner type
Sure,
shit. I'm just
sure.
like, Jesus, man, you can't pick a mo better car than that. You can't even you're gonna
I
drive it
feel
in
it.
urban areas. You're not just driving it on your estate, buddy. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Um, I gotta say, I was never ever a big fan of a Batmobile that couldn't not necessarily blend in with traffic, but just it is faster than traffic and it is cooler than traffic some kind of way. And it can like maybe send a jamming signal and make, big straightaways for him to blaze down or just something like that. Like it's a really cool car and it's armored up more than a regular car, but it's just super cool. That's why I love the Batmobile in the latest The Batman.
oh yeah.
I
I was
just
gonna
think
I was just gonna ask,
yeah,
so, like, as far as live action goes, the
I think
Batman has
that's
to be your greatest.
I think that's the one because it's not unassuming at all,
Mm-mm.
but it is like real. It comes from like a real place, and its batness is from you Rorschach testing your mind on it. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? It doesn't have all this traditional bat crap all over it. It's like you look at it, and it kind of does look like a bat with its swoopness, and it's like its cocky stance in the back. It's kind of got like a bat folding its wings or something. But you got to do that. You got to do a little bit of the work. There's something I like about that.
I will say that Batmobile was the first I've seen that had a realistic suspension on it. Like, that
Yes.
thing, the fact that it was kinda lifted, the fact that when it moved and when it jumped, like, that thing
Mm-hmm.
bounced,
Mm-hmm.
I'd never seen a Batmobile do that, so I was
Mm-hmm.
super into that.
Yeah, and like I said, it's not my favorite like Batman movie, but that Batmobile is funky fresh,
Yeah.
and I just think there's something to that. Honorable mention. I remember when they tried this in the comic books, and it should have been so cool, but it I'll explain. In Nightwing, Chuck Dixon and Scott McDaniel did a great run of Nightwing, and in it, Nightwing was a Bloodhaven cop in the daytime. And when the fuck does this motherfucker sleep? I don't know.
Mm.
So he was Nightwing at night, Bloodhaven cop during the day. And he also was working at a bar or something. I don't know. Chuck Dixon
Jesus.
had this fool doing a lot of shit.
Yeah.
He was like 90s era Spider-Man. This motherfucker had 18 jobs.
Right.
He's like the head least from In Living Color. He's a doctor, a lawyer, a coal miner. Um, so basically, he had a Batmobile or a Nightwing mobile, but it never had one super iconic look to it. It had like it was a super fresh engine that was super powerful and super everything, but you could load different bodies onto it. So it could be a
Mm,
taxi cab, it could be
mm.
a any number of discrete vehicles, and you could kind of load a heavy muscle car body that was sort of armored on it, and that was more or less the Nightwing mobile. And
That's
I thought that
cool.
was so fucking cool. It's such a
Yeah.
good idea, for a superhero. But again, the one thing it's lacking is as cool as that is for us grown-ups, kids want the Nightwing
Yeah.
car with a eagle on the front looking like Smokey and the Bandit. They want that. It's better to them. It's
That's
better.
the thing. You if you're gonna do that concept, you need to have like the real body. You know what I mean? Like,
Right,
sure,
right.
it can double these other things, but when you put the one with the fucking logo on, that's when you know
Mhm.
he means business, you know?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. That's when he's not fucking around with you guys.
Right.
And I just wanna give some props. Again, the Nolan movies aren't my favorite either, and I know it says like I don't like any Batman movies, but you know, Batman lives in your heart.
Yeah.
So nobody will ever get somebody's perfect Batman down. But I do have some reverence for the Tumblr because I never liked the tank like Batmobile because
Mm,
I envisioned it being sort of slow or at least 18 wheelery. And I
right.
didn't like that. I
Right.
thought like a big Optimus Prime looking ass Batmobile, the whole Frank Miller Dark Knight thing. I liked it because in that world he needed a tank because he was fighting such big shit. But as a everyday workaday Batmobile, I never thought the tank aesthetic was cool. I hated when I saw it in BVS because it wasn't even needed in there. It didn't do anything with it at all. It was so stupid.
Yeah.
But then the Tumbler comes along, and I'm like, it's fast and it's nimble and it's the very definition of what his car should be. It should be able to like shoot EMPs and knock out all the fucking lights or whatever. I'm not that they're all anyway. Should be able to do something to knock out all the lights. He should be able to and zip past people in the dark. He should be able to jump over them with a turbo boost. He should be able to jump even over buildings and on building. Did you jump it on buildings with your fucking car?
I was gonna say
Man.
no, I was gonna say, like, if anything from Batman Begins really holds up and, like, sings the Tumblr's praises, that rooftop car chase sequence is so dope, especially because I think all of us, you know, our ideal version of Gotham is one that has, like, the multi-level highways that kinda snake through the city and really make it like this claustrophobic, kinda spider-webbed place. So, fuck yeah, of course the Batmobile should be able to drive over rooftops if he needs it to. I
Mhm.
love that.
It just makes sense. And
Yeah.
plus, we know he does not give a fuck about people's personal property.
Right.
So this is firmly established in that world. Like from the get go, he was like, "Fuck your couch." He's just fucking your whole world up. Your
He
roof
was
is
Rick
fucked
James
up.
at Eddie Murphy's house.
Yep, dude.
Oh, shit.
Blouses, capes, dude. He
You know
just
what? You know what's an interesting point about the Batmobile, though? I would almost say I don't know that the Batmobile has ever been cool in the comics.
it's interesting that you say that because it is more a crime lab and just A to B situation in the comics. There's hardly ever like, damn, I gotta reprogram this aspect of the Batmobile to get out of this situation, or the Batmobile is gonna circle around and fuck these dudes up while I do X. It's like maybe one gag like that, but like it isn't the tool that Tornado the horse is.
Right. And I will say this too, like, the only design of the Batmobile from the comics that has really stuck over the ages is that original design that, you know, has, like, the bubble dome, um, seating area and then, like, the big sort of battering ram bat head on the front, and it looks like an old Studebaker, and, like, that has continually shown up, notably in The Killing Joke, and then, like, again, you know, even up to modern runs, not that he's driving it all the time, but you'll see it in the background of the Batcave or
Hmm.
whatever.
Hmm.
Outside of that, though, there hasn't been that, you know, Star Trek uh, disc with the nacelles kind of, oh man, this is the design that just
Hmm.
everybody agrees this kicks ass. Like the Batmobile has been so many things and has vacillated between like just a car. The Jim Aparo one that you mentioned comes to mind, where it like, yeah, it just looks like a sports car with a bat head painted on the hood,
Uh-huh.
all the way up to things that are like maybe cool but also kind of throwaway. Like every time Jim Lee draws the Batmobile, it's a little bit like, okay, it's a cool technological car, but you're gonna draw it for like 3 panels and like then we're moving on, you know.
Yeah, this is gonna get fucking blown up.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? The one, and people can look it up. Look up Norm Brayfogel's Batmobile.
Mm.
That fucking thing was weird. That thing looked like an electric shaver or something. It had like these big swoops on the back, and it had like some sort of bat like eyes in the front of it and stuff. It was
Okay, yeah.
so fucking weird looking, but it really went with that time and Norm Brayfogel's like art style. Like
Yeah.
it really complemented the way he drew the cape, and that was during the time where he had like this weird like literal hunchback doing a bunch of mechanic work in his like
Right.
who
What was
the
that guy's
fuck
name? What was that
I
guy's name? Fuck, I
yeah
can't remember. I can't remember. Go on.
lost to time, probably something simple like Todd or something.
Yeah, right.
Todd the hunchback.
Well, now I'm just thinking of Todd from Wedding Crashers, which is a whole Batman's got Todd from Wedding Crashers in his Batcave.
Oh god.
Oh,
But
shit.
yeah, his was like yeah,
Harold.
it
Sorry, it just came to me. Harold was the name of
Harold
that hunchback.
Harold
Yes.
and Norm Brayfogel's yeah, but like you saw a picture of it, right? It
Yeah.
looks like an electric shaver. It has these extra, it looks like Knight Rider in super pursuit mode. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying?
kind of.
It
Yeah.
like it's got like it's like trying to stop air. It's not the and I like I said, Norm Brayfogle is a great and a genius and one of the people who put a stamp on Batman forever for me. He
Yeah.
might draw the when I just think of a picture of Batman in my head, it might as well be a Norm Brayfogle Batman. But like that Batmobile is fucking ridiculous.
It's it's like a Ferrari with a bunch of weird shit, like, just pasted all over it, you know?
Right. It's like the
Yeah.
ultimate like kit car, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
But speaking of kit cars,
Well,
people of my generation got to get their fix as I talk about KITT. Because I gotta say, obviously the show is silly. It had a white man with an afro romancing chicks across the Southwest. Um, and he used to drive his supercar up into a mobile mechanic station that was inside of a an 18 wheeler.
mhm.
You know, it just there was so much weird shit about it. A guy in a car doing good with no gun or anything, all this jazz. But KITT is fresh as fuck, and I'll die on that hill. That KITT is fresh as fuck. Just the concept of a basically a Pontiac, at the time a sort of concept Pontiac. That's it.
Yeah,
Sort of a concept Pontiac
yeah.
driving around, but it's the best car in the world. I think in our goddamn reboot it we did with fucking Billy Business, nobody got it.
Oh,
I
dude.
think in a lot of different stuff, nobody gets it. It isn't that the fucking car is so dope. The point is, it's so dope in an undercover way. And it's so
Mhm.
dope in that particularly 80s way. Like it had all the stuff that we have now in cars, like cameras, and it had self-drive, obviously, although
Mhm.
it could
It
your
was like a
fucking
Tes
car.
it was like
Yeah.
a Tesla, but in the '80s.
Right.
Yeah.
And but also it was like again 1,000 times better than a Tesla because if you tell your Tesla to come bust through the fucking wall and flatten these guys that are holding machine guns on you and some hot bitch, your fucking Tesla can't do that, but
It's
KITT
true.
can.
It's true.
Okay, so like what the fuck? The whole time we were talking and people kept likening it to cars right now, the Tesla can't cross the street without hitting five kids. So like KITT was a precision instrument that was better than a horse,
Mhm.
and more reliable than a friend.
Uh-huh.
you know, it just as a concept, I just really dug this thing that's like alive, but it's learning more and more about how to be alive, and you're part of educating it. And some kind of way, it's part of educating you,
Yeah.
and it's forming its personality off of you, and you're like forming a friendship with this fucking car. Some of the stuff I write in the future, you're gonna be like, "Wow, you really took that to heart." I like it. I think it's cool. I think it's cool. I think it's a cool concept to like bond with something like that. And last things last, again, the incognito part of it. It's an indestructible car. It has all these offensive and defensive capabilities, and it has turbo boost. So
Mhm.
it can get anywhere it wants to go. It's fast enough to get there. And when it gets there, it's coming hard than a motherfucker. And it's busting through walls. And it's just hard as fuck. And it looks like a production car. It doesn't have any super crap coming out of it, which is why Super Pursuit Mode was dumb as fuck. You don't monkey with it. It's a regular production car that is superhuman. That's the point. Or supercar in it.
No, I get it, man. And it's a very utopian take on AI, you know? It's
Yeah.
just gonna be there to bust through walls to save us from the bad guy and have some witty repartee.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Abso-fucking-lutely. I agree with that assessment. I
I
mean,
will
some of the
also
best episodes, Kit got scared or
yeah,
Kit refused to do something, but anyway, I just had to give special props to if we're gonna talk about the goddamn General Lee, we're gonna talk
listen,
about the black card. That's the
listen,
that's the
I
best.
I'm with you. I was just gonna say, in a lot of ways, all the things we appreciate about Kit makes it an even better version of any James Bond car. Right? Because
Yes.
the James Bond cars are all about like they look like regular cars, but you push a button and now, whether it's like we're dropping an oil slick or the machine gun
Mhm.
comes out or it's bulletproof or whatever. Like
Mhm.
Kit does all that while also being your best friend.
Exactamundo.
Yeah. All right. I want to get into some really weird esoteric ones. I've got a couple loaded up that are
Mhm.
favorites of mine. So I'll go first and you can kind of
Mhm.
think. I am not like a diehard fan of this show. I know there are people that are, and so I'm not going to try to get into the minutia of it, but I do think the TARDIS is a really dope idea. And it definitely fits that description of like it is singular to this show and it's like nothing that came before it and nobody afterward has tried to rip it off because it is so singular. And that idea of like it's a blue phone booth essentially. I know it's the police box, but like in American terms it's essentially a blue phone booth that is a hypercube. So when you enter it, it has more dimensionality inside of it than you see from outside. And so
Mhm.
like the fact that you have a bonkers sci-fi TV show and the vehicle in which they travel is a bonkers sci-fi idea, boom, that's already great. And then the fact that you're doing sort of the KITT thing with it, right? Like it
Mhm.
looks unassuming. It can blend in. It doesn't look like you're landing a spaceship on the front lawn. It just looks like an everyday thing. I really appreciate and enjoy that. I think it's great.
You know what? I love the fact the dimensionality thing is cool. Again, anything hiding in plain sight gets over on me. I have to give Doctor Who more of a chance. It's just that I think it's kind of it's like getting into anime, It's
Same.
like
No, I agree
5 billion
completely.
episodes. Yeah.
I agree completely. I've watched some of it. I've never disliked it, but it feels daunting to like start. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Which is how people feel with comic books, and then we berate them, or at least I do.
100%. No, 100%. I don't because I get it, but like yeah, I think that's the nature of anything that has like a long running super nerdy fandom. Like it's just
Mm.
overwhelming in terms of like I feel the same way even about professional wrestling. Like I don't want to get into professional wrestling, but if I did, I'd be like, well, like do I have to catch up on backstory? Like, I don't get it. So yeah. Um,
Who's this new guy? Hulk
uh-huh.
Hogan? I wonder if he'll get big later. Wow.
Yeah.
That is funny if somebody literally went and did professional wrestling from like a Gorgeous George on 1950s television all the way up to the fucking NWO era and then the Attitude era and then this new stuff. And they
Yeah.
just did it as like catching up on a series.
Right.
That would be wild as fuck.
I mean, that's some dedication. Like, yeah, that would be a little much.
Well, now speaking of a little much, I was going to proffer Optimus Prime is one of the best vehicles, but nope, he's got to go in our
No.
best robots. He's got to go in our best
Absolutely.
robots episode.
Absolutely. That's a
So
whole
yeah,
other episode.
yeah, just got to drop a tease for that episode coming down the pike because we're definitely going to get into best robots and what that means. But wrapping up vehicles here, you wanted to esoteric.
I got one more while
Yeah, go
you
ahead.
I'll vamp a little while you
Hmm.
marinate. So this is for a character that we are very much on record as not liking for a variety of reasons. The one cool thing that I ever thought DC Comics did with the Flash was the cosmic treadmill. And and I'm sorry, the the idea that the Flash can race through time and dimensions just on his own sucks balls. But the minute you create a sci-fi MacGuffin that is
Yep.
powered by his power, like, all right, you can run fast, and that's what you do. But with a little techno wizardry, we can use the power of your running to
Mm-hmm.
power this sci-fi device, and suddenly it's a time machine. That is dope as shit
Mm-hmm.
because it suddenly loads you up with possibilities that come with problems. What if we use the cosmic treadmill to travel to the year 1500 and then the fucking thing breaks? We can't repair the cosmic treadmill in 1502. You know what I mean? Like, it suddenly makes it dangerous to go out and have adventures. And the fact that, like, it's another one of those things that's, calling it a treadmill, I always felt was like, just, it's just cheeky shorthand, but it's
Mm-hmm.
literally like nobody except maybe Superman could power this machine except the Flash with the power of his speeding legs. And so we have to figure out a way to turn that into a power source. And so, it's a belt on a treadmill.
Dude, call it the cosmic conveyor.
That's not bad. That's
That
not
would have been
bad.
tight as fuck. The cosmic conveyor.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, because it
Yeah.
conveys you to the. Come on, man. Yeah, dude. Medium
Yeah.
bucks. I'm telling you, I deserve the fucking medium bucks. I fucking deserve it.
It's both a conveyor belt and it conveys you places.
Dude,
Bam!
bam! Throw your dick on the table.
Drop the mic.
I don't know how esoteric it is, but I gotta say, the Mach 5 from Speed Racer is so sick
Yes.
looking.
Yes.
It's such a great. It's rolling by just now.
I'm
The
hearing it in the background. Yes.
dude, it's such a great design, and the fact that it had like little pogos that would boing out and make it pop over stuff. Just, I just all types of shit about it was fresh, and that's why I'm so sad I didn't like the Speed Racer movie, or that
Mm.
Speed Racer movie wasn't more like Ford versus Ferrari. Maybe I mean I
Yeah.
know, I mean not like it's going to be a dad movie with like shot and Michael Bay Twilight time or golden hour shots all the time with these fucking Ferraris going around in a circle. Not that boring, but a little bit of that aesthetic, a little bit of Cold Trickle, Days of Thunder, a little bit of, a heightened reality
Yeah.
where,
Something. Well,
yeah.
something that feels like you get the visceral sense of like the tires on the pavement and like the wind being cut through, and not just sort of
Right.
like this video game world. Yeah.
Exactly. You need it as adventurous and brave and blah 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 as the aesthetic of that movie was. One thing it was not was visceral.
Right.
And any depiction of speed must, by definition, be visceral. You have to feel as though it's happening to you. That
Mm.
was the triumph of things like Top Gun Maverick, certainly, and
Mm.
stuff. You kind of feel as though that stuff is happening. It's cut in a way. Not the beginning of Quantum of Solace, even though I found that more affecting than a lot of people.
Yeah.
Just the disorientation of being all the different RPMs of the different cars chasing the different people down the different, winding roads. That was fucking cool.
Yeah.
But if it's rendered more coherently, you get something like you got in Top Gun Maverick or some of these other movies about speed, where you feel the speed.
Mhm. You
So
feel
that
perhaps
yeah.
the need for speed.
I mean, I've just said the Mach 5 deserved a movie. It's called the fucking Mach 5. It
Yeah.
deserved a movie that depicted speed well. And the fact that you didn't get it, people don't even know or like the Mach 5 anymore. They don't remember it. Because, like, I mean, that cartoon was old as shit when I was a baby. So,
Yeah. I mean, the thing about the Mach 5 is like the Mach 5 has that sort of untouchable, amazing design that the Batmobile wishes it had.
oh,
Like,
boy.
you know what I mean? Like, you're never going to redesign the Mach 5 because to this day, that car looks fast as shit and cool as
Mm
shit.
hmm. Mm
You know
hmm.
what I mean? Like, it is just the epitome of what a fucking rocket car should look like. And so it it does what the Batmobile, especially in the comics, fails to do, which is just have that beautiful timeless shape that immediately says, "Oh, it's this car."
Right. And obviously, The DeLorean from Back to the
Yes.
Future.
Look,
Mm.
we only say it that way because it's a very obvious choice. I know Ed is not as high on Back to the Future as I am, and Back to the Future is an aggressively white movie, and we can all admit that.
No, I mean, it's a perfect screenplay that just
Yeah.
happens to, fucking erase fucking erase the contributions of Chuck Berry in one
Uh-huh.
fell swoop. Nah,
Mhm.
but you know what? I get it's a cheeky aside. I don't take it as seriously as a lot of people, but I do enjoy that movie as a perfect screenplay. And the fact that the car is something that at the time was utilitarian but unique. It's a brilliant masterstroke of what to put the time machine in.
100%. And I mean, the fact that Back to the Future 2 made the modifications where suddenly it had like the garbage fusion engine and the wheels turned in and turned into anti-gravity boosters or whatever. All
Oh,
that
that was
stuff.
just too hot. That was
Oh,
just too hot. When that
dude,
shit did that, that blew me away.
that was unbelievable. Unbelievable. Where we're going, we do not need roads. I mean, one of the all-time great level ups in pop culture, the
Oh,
DeLorean from 1 to 2.
we don't need roads. Absolutely. I also wanted to give some props to basically I've been doing all these damn 80s vehicles because I'm old and my mom sat me in front of 80s reruns when I was a kid. So
Uh-huh.
the B.A. Baracus van was so cool. The 18 van was so cool. Dude, you can't do better than red and black as the colors for your 80s car doing
I
stuff.
see your A-Team van and I raise you the Scooby-Doo Mystery Machine.
Dude, you know what? I love the Mystery Machine. And you know
Yep.
what's interesting about the Mystery Machine? We should draw it. Because
Ooh,
drawing the Mystery Machine is an interesting challenge. It
interesting, yeah.
isn't shaped it's shaped so fucking weird. The type of vehicle that it actually is, sort of a almost large VW van,
Yeah. It is
it's
no,
weird. It's shaped
it
weird.
it's somewhere between, like, um, a conversion van and a Volkswagen van, you're right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's some weird in between, some amphibious in between, and it's a weird thing to draw. I tried to draw it one time. Jeff Johnson, notorious friend of the show, he he sent me back my drawing with like the correct perspective planes on it. It's just like, yeah, try to draw the mystery. I mean, it's pretty good mystery van, but you're kind of the moon is kind of weird, and there's no the horizon's kind of low. And I was like, ah, damn it, Jeff. But yeah, I was just so concentrating so hard on trying to draw the fucking van,
Mhm.
it was like in a painting, so I wasn't trying to use any tracing or any bullshit or any even drawing it freehand and then warping it to make it not suck. I had
Yeah.
none of that. I had to
Yeah,
just
yeah,
draw
yeah.
this motherfucker freehand, and it was difficult.
I get it. I get it completely. It
And
kinda reminds
drawing the lettering is a
Whoa.
fucking bear.
That's like a Jim Steranko effect on the side of the, on the side of the vehicle.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, the other one that I wanted to mention, that isn't necessarily my favorite, but it has to come up, is the Ghostbusters, Ecto One.
Yeah. Yep. 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 I was
That's
gonna mention that in passing at least. It's an
Yeah,
interesting vehicle. It's an interesting vehicle because it has that the same thing with the proton packs and we talked about in our weaponry episode. It has a utilitarian slash refurbished.
yeah, like jerry
There.
rigged.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. And that is cool. It goes with their aesthetic. If they had a super fresh car, I hazard to say if they had a super fresh car and everything else was exactly as it was, I think the movie would be fucked up. I think it would fuck the movie up. If they just showed up in a fresh ass, even A-team level van with all kind of hot shit and all that retractable stuff from the toys that they put into the new Ghostbuster movie. If it
yeah.
had all of that stuff in it, I don't think it'd work.
No, I agree. I agree with that completely. It does its job. I'll say that it does its job.
Yeah, it does its fucking job.
Um, a couple other ones that deserve honorable mention. There's a couple motorcycles in comics in particular. I'm gonna go ahead and say I have always loved Lobo's motorcycle.
It
It is
is dope.
it is a space vehicle that makes no fucking sense,
Yep.
However, the over the topness of Lobo and just the coolness of the design puts it over the top for me. Like
Yeah.
the idea that you have an indestructible, super strong, like planet destroying alien who's essentially traveling around space in like the redneck version of the Silver Surfer's surfboard,
Mm-hmm.
that works for me.
Yeah. He's Sons of Space Anarchy. Just,
100%.
just going around having fun. Just a good old boys killing my whole civilization. Down. Now, I think what's interesting about Lobo's motorcycle is I love how in lieu of they don't really do wheels.
Right.
So it's got some kind of design that doesn't feel as though it needs wheels, but still evokes a motorcycle because of the ape hangers and everything, the way that he's astride it and everything. But without wheels, to still be able to evoke motorcycle is still a pretty big feat.
Well, that's why I kind of liken it to the Silver Surfer surfboard, because in my mind, that's not a surfboard. It's just a minimalist um, means of conveyance for a
Hmm.
Herald of Galactus. And I sort of think that's what Lobo's bike is. Like, it's not a motorcycle, it's just a minimalist means of conveyance for somebody that like doesn't need any protection when he goes out into space. So it's just supposed to like look imposing when it's flying up on you for him to destroy your spaceship.
Yeah, yeah. No, I love that as a vehicle. I also think though, space I think a lot of times we take for granted how silly you would look on anything in space. You know what I
Fair,
mean? Like,
fair.
like
Yeah.
just him sitting on anything, like even like in like Guardians 2 when Kurt Russell's just standing on like that dirigible that's flying through space or whatever. It's just like so silly. There's something
Yeah.
silly about it. And we like forget it because you're like comic books are great and they really do put us in a whole nother mind frame. As far as terrestrial vehicles, I gotta give props to a vehicle that's actually alive. And I talked about it briefly on one of our episodes about I think the greatest soundtracks,
Hmm.
and it is Christine.
I love that. Okay. Okay.
Christine is a great car, and I'll just break. I got my whole treatise down. It'll be tickling or nothing. The thing is, in the book, the car is haunted by this dude who like kills kids or ladies or lady kids, whatever. He's a bad guy, and he possesses the car, and he then starts possessing the kid who buys the car, and he's sort of responsible for all this evil and shit that's going on, and he's trying to possess the kid to kind of get a body back to be like living in the kid and then living in his old car he used to have, and the haunting cycle is complete, ha ha ha, whatever.
Yeah.
Stephen King's a fucking genius, coked out son of a bitch genius, okay?
He's sober
But
now, but yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
but well, when he wrote this he was
Yes.
definitely not.
Yeah,
so
true.
that being the case, I give him all the respect he's due. But that sucks ass. That sucks ass. That is so fucking dumb. It just boggles my mind. But the movie just posits that motherfucker came off the assembly line wrong.
Mm,
Maybe it tasted blood, whatever the fuck, something happened to that motherfucker while it was getting made. And it's just bad to the bone. And it should have got smashed. Somebody should have noticed it when it first killed that guy who was smoking in it, and
yeah.
they should have noticed when this happened and that happened. They should just smash that motherfucker right then. But it's just been allowed to just be insidious and graft itself onto people and different owners throughout history at different states of disrepair. And it comes back sometimes and it lets itself get dull again so it can hide again. It comes back sometimes. It's an immortal killer. That's 100 times better. That's a
Yeah.
hundred times so like fuck it, when the kid gets the fucking car, right? He sees it and he's instantly attracted to it because it does have that weird Stephen Kingian eldritch magic to it.
Right.
But it can only harness its full power when you give it love. It's in disrepair, it don't drive, you need to tow it off the plot. But once you get it in the garage, you start massaging that motherfucker, it starts helping you to restore it. There's that classic scene where he's buffing it out or something, and then like a fucking mirror like twists and comes back together, and he goes, Well, show me what else you can do. And the fucking car starts putting itself back together. And whatever technology they had back when John Carpenter was directing that movie, they put their foot off in that shit. Whether they were making like inflatable, but like metal looking parts for them to kind of balloon, or whether they were smashing stuff in some kind of stop motion, I don't know. But it looks like the car is really way more than any CGI I've ever seen, really rebuilding itself before your eyes. And last things last, the car, when it gets its full powers back and it's on and it's full of gas and it's ready to help you to beat the bullies in your life, to help you get the girl you want, to help you be the man you're going to be. All it asks is your fucking immortal soul. All it asks is for you to be with it forever and treat it better than you treat anybody else in your life. And that, my friend, is the Faustian bargain that you make when you restore Christine. And the fucking and it communicates to you its love, because it only plays oldie stations, and it can only communicate through oldie songs. So like if you, when the bad guys try to break into the fucking garage and beat up Christine, and they try to get the door open, the radio comes on and says, "You keep on knocking, but you can't come in. You keep on knocking, but you can't come in." Woo! It's fucking Little Richard. And then when he forsakes Christine for a girl, he comes back to Christine and Christine won't start.
Mm.
And when he fucking begs Christine to start and says he'll love her more than anybody, that girl doesn't mean as much to me as you. The car starts and plays, "Don't know why I love you like I do." Da dum dum da da. All the shit. It's just, it's so fucking creepy, dude. It's so creepy and so, like, my favorite word, psychosexual. You
Mm.
know what I'm saying? There's something so fresh about it. And I just think Christine has so much more personality in all these fucking cars we've been talking about than fucking KITT even. You know what I'm saying?
Fair. Yeah.
Because there's
Well, literally
something
has more personality.
it's just, there's something insidious about that sort of mythos grafted onto a vehicle is just perfect. There's something perfect about it.
Well, on a metaphorical level too, it is so on the nose. I've often made the statement that car guys are just the male version of horse girls. And like
Yes.
that's what that movie is about. That like when
Mhm.
you become obsessed with restoring cars and getting into the minutia of cars, thinking that it's gonna like make your life better and make you cool and this and that, like you just become a fucking obsessive weirdo. Like that's how the rest of the world sees you.
No, abso-fucking. Oh, and look up the car from the Wraith real quick. I know it's before your time, but
The
like,
Wraith.
dude, it's a fucking car. It's a movie about basically this guy played by, I think, Charlie Sheen, gets killed,
Okay.
and he like comes back as this other kid, and this other kid is like new in town and is just like cool guy, starts ingratiating himself, but he starts making enemies of the same people that the other dead kid made enemies of. And I'm probably misremembering this hella much, so whatever. But the bottom line is, he turns out to have this supercar that is like a ghost car, and it just like blasts through other people's car. It blows itself up and rebuilds itself. It's a
Dude,
crazy ghost car.
this is a badass looking car.
It fucking is. That
Yeah.
fucking car from the Wraith is the shit.
Yeah.
Look at that car is almost the equivalent of like fucking the glaive
Mm.
from Kroll.
Yeah.
It is so much cooler than the movie that it's in. Like,
I see it. No, like this is more Batmobile than Batmobile. Like this is just yeah.
dude, that's why I
Yeah.
wanted you to see it, because this shit is like a Batmobile. This shit is tight. And they tried to almost make KITT look like this by making him like a Pontiac Banshee, I think, in like one of those misshapen Knight
Yeah.
Rider reboots they did.
Yeah, yeah,
They
yeah.
tried to kind of concept him out, because this car is like obviously a low-key concept car.
Yeah, I'm looking
Um,
that up. It's actually it's a the Dodge M48 Turbo Interceptor. No, what is that? Interceptor. Dodge M48 Turbo Interceptor. It was a concept car that Dodge made of all companies. But
mhm.
yeah, sick as shit. Wow.
That fucking car is sick, dude. But yeah, as we round out here, the vehicle is to me a big deal in the hero's repertoire, because as you stated, it tells you what their range is. It tells you almost like what kind of hero they are. Do they drive a shitty repurposed thing that they just show up to hotels and shoot chandeliers off? Or does it turbo boost onto the scene? Or do you slide across the hood of it like fucking Studs and McCurkle or whatever the fuck those dudes were? Fuck those cops. Starsky and Hutch. Starsky and
Studs and McCurkle. That's the show I want to see. But all right.
Dude, Studs. Okay. So McCurkle is like book smart, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
McCurkle's got round frame glasses and
Yes.
like some curly blonde hair. Like, yeah.
Yeah. And Studs, I think Studs used to work on a horse farm. So yeah, he knows horses and he knows cars.
But
And
but he himself is also a stud, of course.
oh, of course. And he said, "Hey, I've been knowing what a stud is my whole life, or whatever." And he's got
also,
a.
wait, just to put a hat on a hat. He's also a carpenter who frames
I knew
houses.
it. I knew it. Oh god, yeah, that's his traditional outfit. Like it's like part cowboy, part carpenter, all adventurer in this '80s show, right? It's got this array of tools. Look at, there'll always be a cowboy or a carpentry thing, or usually a combo. Like he'll have to throw a lasso around a sawhorse and pull it over to do something.
And the way that Studs and McCorkle get around, they've got a fucking motorcycle with a sidecar. So Studs rides a fucking big motorcycle and McCorkle's in the sidecar.
Oh, shit. And then McCorkle could be like, disengage, and just ride it off as this like independent rocket of doom that he just slams into people.
No, he can do that, but it has no power of its own. So
Yeah.
Studs has to like execute a screeching turn to like throw him off.
Yep. He just and his move is to kind of bobsled it or get down in some kind of way to increase the velocity. Yeah, dude. Yeah, we just made a hit. Damn it. Why weren't we born in the 50s? We could have fucking sold that.
I mean, shit, we were born in the 80s. Well, we were born in the 80s, but if we were adults in the 80s, like that would have ran 7 seasons on ABC. No question.
Fuck yeah, dude. We'd be pulling the fucking the page out of the typewriter and throwing it, and it makes a fucking C. Dude, we'd be fucking geniuses in the 80s. Because Hardcastle and McCormick is literally just what we said, but like with an old judge and a ne'er-do-well and one cool car. And that was a whole show.
Dude,
like
our concept is so much better.
Dude, it's so much deeper.
All right, I want to take us out with one that we haven't mentioned yet, but I think is going to be near and dear to your heart, as it is to mine. Perfect example of a vehicle that works within the milieu of the property because it's just sci-fi enough while also being grounded in some version of the real world. And that is the Blackbird from X-Men.
Damn it, Bill. You know how to put the cherry on top of my sundae.
I knew it.
I turned into Rogue right there. You see that?
I'll turn into Gambit. I knew it, Cher. I knew it.
Oh, God. Dude. Oh, and I think that is one of the best vehicles of all time. Number one, I come from the generation a few years older than you. Us kids, man, we had on like some kind of hammer pants. Maybe there were some British Knights or some Filas that came in there somewhere. Maybe there was a Ferrari or a Porsche 911 or a fucking Lamborghini poster on your wall. And if you were one of those kids who had like a military dad or one of those dads who pretended he was in the military or knew a guy in the Navy or some bullshit like that, you had one of those from probably Spencer's Gifts or something. Fucking sick ass posters of the SR-71 Blackbird. It was the single coolest looking fucking thing ever devised to that time. It just was.
Fastest airplane made by man at the time. Like just the epitome of like, holy shit, we're living in the future type of technology.
Yeah. But dude, it looks so cool because we know that there's more advanced spy planes since, but they're fucking fugly, man.
It's true.
Those
Did they fire the Skunk Works design team? Like, what the fuck is going on?
Those fucking planes are fugly. Put on
Yeah.
some beer goggles, go jump in one of them planes.
Tom Cruise wouldn't be caught dead in that.
Hell nah. Jennifer Connelly planes are bust. But yeah, dude, no. The SR-71 was so sexy. And to the point where it had two big butt cheeks. Like it had two big butts on the back, and it kind of had this front-loaded kind of penile situation, like the long nose and the big heavy butt in the back. It was like a butt dick. It was
But I mean,
crazy.
the profile of that almost looks like a woman. Like it's almost
Mm-hmm.
got an hourglass shape with those
Yep.
big fucking honking jet engines in the back.
Yeah. To just denote that just tremendous power again. Going back to, we want to talk about Blade's car got horsepower. The SR-71 fly by like, look, kid. And just how also with the X-Men, speaking of the X-Men's one, the one in real life was the best thing ever. And then the X-Men were just like, well, we're gonna be in it. And also it's got Shi'ar technology and it can like hover and shit and all this type of
Right.
shit. Like, damn, this is fresh as fuck.
But again, like it was such a smart choice, and I think it was Claremont that probably gave it to them, that it was a real plane. And so even if you never saw it happen necessarily, you just imagine either they went and fucking stole a spy plane off a military base, or they
Mm-hmm.
used some connections to Nick Fury or whomever, and they got their hands on an SR-71 Blackbird, and then Forge and whoever the fuck else went to work just tricking that bitch out with everything they would need to fight the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. And next thing you know, it's underneath the basketball court at the X Mansion, ready to go. And like, it is such the perfect combination of like realistic enough, grounded enough, also being like very aspirational, like you said, it's
Mm-hmm.
the sort of thing you want to put on your wall and imagine yourself in, but then also being like gimmicky enough and sci-fi enough and sort of fantastical enough that like it's more than just a real world thing. Like it's the
Mm-hmm.
perfect synthesis of everything that makes a great vehicle.
Yeah, I think that's why it's the headliner because it is all of that. Ah, damn, the SR-71 Blackbird. I even remember, and last things last, it was also vulnerable. Like there's
Yeah.
been many a story where it got shot down or it crashed in Antarctica and fucking Scott's glasses broke or something. So he's in Antarctica, he can't see, he's gonna shoot Storm's face off,
I
or
remember.
whatever.
By the way, I that was issue 1 of X-Men Unlimited, and it was a great
Yep,
story.
yep, yep. And all that type of shit. So it's like it's involved in their lives in the
Mhm.
same way as like, dude, what do you think the Duke boys did when the General Lee finally gave out? Like,
That's when their
like
adventures ended, man. That's when they just
then
had
they
to settle
just
down after that.
got fat and started oh, I'm not even gonna say anything else about what they did after that. But like I think it involves red hats. They just sat on the porch wearing red hats.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
like,
sounds
man,
about right.
America was better when I was just jumping over the police and stuff, man. Dude, just imagine the Duke boys being like, "Oh, well, he should have just consented." You know what I'm saying? You just fucking don't resist, man. I mean, goddamn, what's so hard about this? Didn't y'all used to lead the police on high speed chases and jump over cricks and hollers to get away from them? That's in our misspent youth. We was
That was
just,
just boys being boys.
yeah, we were just. I mean, did you not hear the theme song? We were some good old boys. We were never meaning no
Never meaning
harm.
no harm.
Dude, oh man, we're just making our way the only way we know how, and that was just a little bit more than the law would allow. You know what I'm saying? Which describes the fucking X-Men too. It's like
It's
the perfect,
true. It's
it's
true.
the perfect the X-Men should appropriate the theme of, of the Dukes of Hazzard because they
Oh
really are the
shit.
good old boys who are mostly women. But
Yeah.
dude, thank you guys for tuning in to this episode of The Greatest Pod. We really enjoy your support. You can support us financially on Patreon, patreon.com/The Greatest Pod, or you can give us a review for free, which would help us move up the charts and get on more people's eyeballs and ear holes. And you can
Mhm.
also obviously subscribe to The Greatest Pod YouTube channel and also follow Nerd Goat Podcast on Twitter. That's our Twitter for The Greatest Pod, Nerd Goat Podcast. And you can send us a letter. Where can they send us a letter or an email? A letter. Who am I? This whole theme has a Confederate flavor. It's like, my dearest, greatest pod, I was listening to your missives the other day.
Oh, well, if you do want to send an electronic letter to us boys here at the Greatest Pod, you can write to email thegreatestpod@gmail.com. That is no spaces, no underscores, but include the word email thegreatestpod@gmail.com.
Oh man. And again, thank you for listening to this 500 horsepower, turbocharged, intercepting, armor plated episode of
The Greatest Pod.